What is ethics? Hi, I'm Mike Mason. This is the Mortal Kombat Podcast. The Mortal Kombat Podcast is the podcast arm of Viri Christi. Viri Christi is a Catholic lay apostolate devoted to help young men attain the full stature of Christ by growing strong in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can check us out online at virichristi.com. All right, fellas, this is the Intro to Moral Theology, Episode 1, okay? In this episode, we are going to try to answer the question, what in the world is ethics and what is the approach we're going to take to it? Okay, so those are the two things we're going to try to handle or tackle. Now, this unit, before we launch in, this episode, we're going to talk about intro to ethics, as I said. Next week, we're going to talk about intro to moral theology. So what's the difference between ethics and moral theology? Week 3, what are the sources of moral theology? So when we're trying to think about what's good and bad for us, what sources can we use to arrive at wisdom on those questions? And then the fourth one, this is a big one, fellas. Some people believe morality is relative, which means morality is different for different peoples and cultures and places. I'm going to argue that's not true, okay? So we'll get to that in week 4. But let's go ahead and launch into what we're going to talk about today. So we need to know what ethics is before we, launch into this class here. All right, what in the world is ethics? When you study ethics, your subject matter is human conduct or human choices. So the subject matter of ethics is the actions, okay, the things people think, say, and do. Okay, so the actions you do, that is the subject matter. And then what you do when you study ethics is you look at the things people say, think, and do, and you judge their rightness and wrongness. Okay, so is what they're saying, thinking, and doing right or wrong? And does those thoughts and words and actions lead to ultimate happiness or away from it? Okay, so what ethics is, it's a systematic study of human actions from the perspective of their rightness and wrongness, and whether they lead to ultimate human happiness or they lead away from it. Okay, does that make sense? So that's what ethics is. So when we're looking at this, we're going to look at the choices we make. Are they getting us closer to happiness, further away? Are they right or are they wrong? Okay. Now, whenever you do ethics, okay, philosophy is one of those sneaky little things that most people, you guys won't study till you're in college, and most people won't study at all. But philosophy is important because philosophy is kind of the foundation or fundament. It looks at the fundamental questions of life that inform everything else. Okay. So I want to look at 2 basic approaches to ethics, and whichever approach that you guys take is going to greatly, greatly change how you understand God and morality and your parents and your teachers and all that stuff. So whichever perspective you guys share is going to greatly color what you think of the moral life. Okay, so it's important we look in this closely. All right, 2 basic approaches. One is by a philosopher by the name of Immanuel Kant. He died in 1804. Okay, he argued for what's called a morality of obligation or a duty-centered approach to ethics. Okay, what is a morality of obligation approach? If you guys believe this is what morality is, okay, here's what Kant said. Kant said that what ethics basically is you find authorities, you determine what an authority is. An authority could be God, your parents, your school, your boss, your mind, right? Reason, something. So you find what an authority is. Then you look at what rules that authority has laid down. And what morality is you are obligated to keep those rules. Now, for a lot of you, when I say that, you might be thinking, isn't that what morality is? No. Okay. For Kant, what morality basically is what's the authority? What are the rules? I have to obey the rules. For Kant, and from the morality of obligation, this duty-centered approach to ethics, the rules, the moral rules, guys, are not connected to being happy. So according to this perspective, you have a little bit of conflict here because you can choose to try to be happy or you can choose to try to be moral, but you don't get both. Okay? Because the rules are not inherently connected to living a good and happy life. Right? This is very problematic. This is why I'm not arguing for this position, nor do I think it's true. This is not, in my mind, the Catholic Church's teaching morality. It's not Jesus Christ teaching a morality. The approach the Catholic Church takes is what's called a morality of happiness or a virtue theory approach to ethics. And the greatest proponent of this is St. Thomas Aquinas. Okay, so we're going to study St. Thomas's approach to ethics. From a morality of happiness perspective, living a moral life is simply living the most fulfilling and happy life you can. That's what morality is. So for Thomas Aquinas, the moral life is the happy and good life. Now, you guys might have objections to that I'll address in the future. Okay, you have my word. But for him, when you're living a moral life, you are living the most fulfilling human life that you can live. So for him, morality is inherently connected, okay, to happiness. Guys, when you read the New Testament closely, that's the same thing's true in there. Okay, when God's giving you commandments and stuff in the Bible, he ain't doing it to boss you around or just tell you a bunch of rules. No, God's giving you guidelines because he knows the pathway to happiness and goodness. Okay, guys, in this approach to ethics, there are authorities. Okay, so God, family, parents, teachers, coaches, stuff like that. There are moral authorities in this view. There are rules in this view. But the important thing is the authorities and the rules are there as conduits to live a good life. Okay, what I mean by conduits, they're the pathway to living a good life. So for Thomas Aquinas and Jesus and St. Augustine in the Catholic faith, when you live a moral life, when you have authorities in your life laying down moral rules, those rules are there to help you live a satisfying and fulfilling life. And guys, you kind of already know this. Okay. And I know a lot of us don't like some of the rules we have, and we may, it's normal not to like all the moral rules, but let's take a rule of not getting drunk. Okay. People who get drunk, yeah, it's pleasurable. So people say, well, I want to get drunk because it feels good and it's pleasurable. Okay. Okay, that's fine. What happens when a person commits themselves into making that sort of choice? One, getting drunk in the short term, like the right now, you say and do stupid things. Okay, that's not human flourishing. Second, when you wake up tomorrow morning, you're gonna be hungover. So you're gonna be it's unhealthy. It's gonna make you sick. That's not akin to human flourishing. And then if you create a bad habit of getting drunk a lot, those kind of people don't turn into good men. So when the church comes in and says, listen, you're not supposed to get drunk. Getting drunk is a mortal sin. When the church says that, it's not trying to kill your good time. Now, maybe if you want to get drunk, that advice might stink sometimes. I'm not arguing against that. But guys who remain sober, right? So if you remain sober tonight, you don't get drunk, you follow that rule. Well, tonight you're not saying and doing stupid things. Tomorrow when you wake up, you don't have a headache and a hangover. And then because you're not getting drunk, you're doing better at sports and in school, and you're not getting in trouble. And then you stretch that out over time, you're living a really good, fulfilling, happy life. Okay. That's kind of an idea of the morality of happiness view of ethics. All of ethics is like this. So from this perspective, when God lays down rules, when the church lays down rules, those rules are there to help us become the men we're supposed to be and to become happy. Okay. Guys, whether or not you have a duty-centered view of morality or a virtue theory, happiness-centered, is extremely important because your attitude on morality is going to be determined by these two approaches. Fellas, I have great news for you. The church takes a happiness perspective, and that's the one I'm going to take. So as we're talking about morality in here, I'm not going to say, well, just do it because your mom said so. She brought you into the world. She can take you out. No, what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is to live morally upright lives, because that is the pathway to the good and happy life. And of course, there will be objections to that I will do my best to address in the future. But we are butting up against the end of our time together. Hope that helps, guys. You have a view of what ethics is. We have two basic approaches, and hopefully you guys have a clear idea of kind of what our pathway is forward. But I hope you guys have an awesome week. I look forward next week to us coming back and talking about what in the world's in moral theology and how's that different from ethics. God bless.